What up, everybody? Welcome to the Bituation Room podcast live, starting a little bit early, but you in the future, you needn't worry your pretty little ears over such trifles. I am your host, Francesca Fiorentini, still here somehow, still streaming, still doing the damn thing, still gonna talk all about yes, the Charlie Kirk murder fallout, the impeccable job the FBI is doing standing there, answering the phone, and actually a case that they bungle with every single day as more details emerge about the shooter in this obvious crime that is not being done by the FBI. That's being done by journalists like Ken Klippenstein. So we're going to get into that a little bit later with my guest Blakeley, as well as looking at how Congress is giving Israel even more of a blank check to do their war crimes, and what that means for political speech around Gaza and Palestine and the like. So tuck in for that. There is so much coming at you, but this is going to be sort of an open face sandwich of a show. We're going to eat it. We're going to start with dessert and we're going to end with the cocktail. It's going to be weird because journalist Jacob Silverman is here to talk about his new book, Gilded Rage, which is very fitting because this week, if you if you watch this channel, if you listen to it as a podcast, you know that the most recent deep dive I did, that if you haven't checked out, you should check out, is a piece about Lord of the Rings and the far right. The question being, why is the right so obsessed with the Lord of the Rings? And in Jacob Silverman's book, maybe he doesn't dig into it as much. However, it is everything to do with the narratives that these tech billionaires and libertarians tell themselves about who they are and what side of history they are on. And so I called it Tolkien Chuds, which is a phrase that actually Palmer Luckey of Anduril, the military tech company, proudly owns the term chud, which is very interesting. Give that a watch if you haven't already. And if you're so inclined, become a patron of the show and support this kind of work. These deep dives, the 27-minute to an hour and 27-minute deep dives that I've been doing, which again gives us a little bit more of a break from the breakneck speed of the news to maybe dig deeper and have a little bit of fun, a little bit of scripted jokes, all the things that I like to do. And speaking of jokes, make sure you check me out live October 1st. That is a Wednesday in Pasadena, California. I will be back at the Ice House for my monthly show, New World Disorder. We have a brand new lineup. Jackie Cation, Lana Sala, who else is on it? Brody Reed, Matt Lieb, of course. And then in Brooklyn, Monday, October 13th, coming off the back of two Bad Hasbara live shows, one of which I will be a part of. Not really sure which one. Those shows are sold out, however, but Monday, October 13th at the Bell House, Matt and I will be co-headlining. I believe Daniel Mate is going to be there, plus some drop-in guests. It's going to be such a good night. Get your tickets wherever you're watching this or listening to this. Still doing shows, you guys. Still out here trying to make the people laugh, trying to bring people together. Did I mention you should support the show? Patreon.com/Bituation ad-free content. You can also become a member on YouTube. You can also become a member on Twitch. And you get so many perks, discounts on merch, 20% off our union-made. That's right. Not all of your favorite shows can say they have union-made merchandise. Bituationroom.com. Super cute t-shirts, the Frantifa shirts, as well as the logo shirts. And, merch that is percolating in my brain that is not, isn't out yet. But maybe one day. Thank you guys so much for being here. And with that, let's get to it. He is a journalist who has covered everything from the Sam Bankman-Fried trial, which was the last time he was on, which I do need updates on, to all of the AI slop that we are being inundated with. I just got news that Fiverr, which is a place for freelance artists, to make a meager amount of money. Fiverr is going completely AI. He's a contributing editor for The Baffler and New Republic magazines. He's the author of Terms of Service, Social Media, and the Price of Constant Connection, and New York Times bestsellers Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud. And here to talk about his book coming out next month, Gilded Rage, Elon Musk, and the Radicalization of Silicon Valley, is Jacob Silverman. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am okay.
I understand.
I am okay. I think the word I keep coming back to is like appalled. I am deeply appalled by the discourse that we are swimming in right now. And it has a little bit to do with what your book is about, which is, these tech libertarians and kind of the narratives they propagate. As we see the narrative so clearly emerged even before a suspect was caught in this Charlie Kirk murder, the narrative was already there. It's the far left, it's the wokies, it's the trans, it's the this and the that. And it's not just happening at these lower levels, it's really happening at these high levels of these ideologues like Peter Thiel, ideologues like J.D. Vance, people who come from the VC and the tech world. So I want to talk to you about your book, but specifically just first off, like when, in the 80s or whatever, like, when you had another Silicon Valley boom and throughout all these, bubbles and whatnot, Silicon Valley's never been considered a right-wing industry. And yet now it very much has been. And my question is, how did it become radicalized? And who are the figures who made it such a reactionary force? Like, I guess my question is it just part and parcel of the amount of money that's there? Or is there something else going on? Tell me.
I think both. For one thing, the tech industry is a lot bigger or a lot bigger part of the economy than it used to be. I mean, we had tech millionaires and billionaires before, but maybe it sounds a little obvious, but tech is in everything now, right? And they're running systems, of course, for the federal government, for every corporation. We're all plugged into them all day long. Your computer no longer just sits in one room, and that's the computer room. So their products are...
Remember the computer room?
Yeah, those were the good old days. Their products are more and more part of all our lives, and also part of how the government runs and how sensitive or classified systems in the government run too. You mentioned Palmer Luckey and Anduril. I mean, now you have people in tech and with sort of a tech culture and mindset and attitude who are making weapons for the military, and they're very proud to be doing it now.
Yes.
I loved your Tolkien Chud graphic. So I think one thing that's changed is that tech is much bigger, but also there is more money at stake. There are huge government contracts. And a lot of the tech industry, I think, sees that as their present and their future, which is to do stuff like SpaceX being the principal rocket contractor for NASA and the DoD, or to make weapons for the government. There's no longer any kind of any questioning of that. It's actually considered a cool thing to do now.
Right.
So there's always this strain of conservatism that existed within the tech industry. The tech industry has been involved with government work or the military establishment since it started, basically, since Silicon Valley got going in the 50s and 60s. But one thing I think is that they are very glad now to make that alliance with a conservative or increasingly fascistic federal government. The other thing I think is that, like a lot of people, they came out of 2020 and the larger pandemic changed in some ways. And some of them had some of the reactionary impulses that we saw elsewhere among people. But the difference, of course, is that these are centimillionaires and billionaires who, when they got really upset about COVID protocols or their businesses not being able to operate, or about George Floyd and BLM or Me Too or some of these other social and criminal justice issues that were really kind of taking the country by storm in some ways, when they feel angry about that or alienate or have some reactionary response, they have the power to do something about it. So you saw a lot of companies in Silicon Valley that once maybe paid lip service to social issues like BLM or allowed some protest among its employees. That's gone. One example I use in my book is that about 10 years ago, Google had a small contract with the Defense Department to analyze images coming from drone video feeds. And that was basically one component in a larger system to identify targets. And people at Google protested, and Google eventually dropped the contract. It wasn't that big a deal. It was called Project Maven. It was pretty small by Google standards. Other tech companies picked it up. Now, in the last couple of years, you've had employees at Google and Microsoft, but we'll stick with Google, protest against the company's contracts with the Israeli government and the IDF and being directly involved. And those people are fired immediately now.
Yeah.
You had 40 people, I believe, during one protest last year who were just a silent protest, all fired. So, the culture in tech has really changed, or at least the dominant culture. You still have a certain kind of social liberalism or a veneer of that, or this libertarianism where, they all want to be rich and do drugs and kind of have their way with things. But they are much more committed to putting their money and growing political power behind things that they don't like, or changing what they don't like.
Yeah. And the irony of all ironies is that so many of them, Silicon Valley getting its start thanks to government contracts. I've just last week we're talking about Larry Ellison of Oracle and how Oracle got started on government contracts. And yet so much of the gains from Silicon Valley have been privatized and then refunneled into our political system, buying, speech and buying candidates and whatnot. That I think is really, I think Thiel and Musk really stand as these towering figures, and you talk about them a lot in the book. And I guess I'm just wondering, from studying them, from writing about them, do you think they're getting ahead of our own reaction to their ungodly amounts of wealth by basically positing themselves as the minority? Unironically, they think that billionaires are a protected minority class, who are under attack and all of this. Because that's my question is it also just feels like this is a fucking product of not taxing these people out of their insane amounts of wealth, and they're just reacting to our reaction to them.
Yeah, I think there's an incredible sense of entitlement combined with this sort of underdog attitude that is really not earned. Maybe because a lot of these people were nerds, 30 or 40 years ago. They still kind of have that oppressed nerd kind of attitude, but things are much different now. They are billionaires. They're advising the president. They are determining major political decisions. And the one thing that even people like Mark Andreessen say, who's a billionaire, Silicon Valley royalty, but certainly one of the most I'd say reactionary of these types, used to be a Democratic donor. His at least explanation, which we don't have to buy necessarily, but it was that there used to be kind of this unspoken bargain between the business overclass and the rest of the country, which is, they got really rich, they would make money, and they would be taxed, in their view, a reasonable nominal amount, and then they would give something back with philanthropy,
Right.
funneling stuff through their private foundations or wherever else. I think a lot of people would argue that was never a very good bargain for the wider public. And it's only gotten worse as these people have gotten wealthier and more powerful. Andreessen himself said last summer that one of his breaking points in order to move away from the Democrats and vote for Trump and support him was this proposed tax on unrealized capital gains, meaning if you had a bunch of stock that was worth $100 million more on paper, but you hadn't sold it yet, you would be taxed on some of those gains. That's going to affect a handful of people in the country, but it might affect people like Mark Andreessen. To him, that was unacceptable. That was a breaking point. That how dare you tax me on something where I haven't even fully consolidated the gains or made the money yet? No matter that counts as something for these people. They borrow against those gains. There are all these reasons why to do that, but
that's their origin story, is finding out that thing, and it does come down to government regulation.
That's the thing with some of these guys, and one thing that I found helpful writing the book is they talk a lot about how they feel. You don't necessarily need to interview them, or you just look up their posts or their interviews with other people that they go on these podcasts and talk for 2 hours, and they are sensitive little boys in a lot of ways.
And I also think reflect our culture. This is the rise of these tech libertarians and oligarchs, or whatever you want to call them, kind of happened, in the wake of like a broader celebrity culture worship of billionaires, even going all the way back to like the Paris Hiltons or whatever when I was, growing up, and then like, to the Kardashians and whatnot. And so it's like, this is like Kardashians for bros. This is Kardashians for like finance or tech bros or like men, really, who, you know what I mean, who are like, don't know how to dress as well, but are like, but see themselves. Because the question I have is like, why the fuck wouldn't you hide? Shouldn't you be ashamed of all of this money? But it's like, no, because that's their brand, is like, I billionaire, you can too, when in fact you cannot. But I wanted to ask you about like AI. You talk about
Hmm.
AI in your book, and Christ, man, every moment, every week, it gets worse and worse and worse. How is AI turbocharging the authoritarian tendencies of the tech libertarians?
Sure. Well, the first problem with AI is that no one really knows what we're racing towards, what they're trying to build. You hear things like AGI, artificial general intelligence. Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook say they're pursuing super intelligence. These words that basically are supposed to mean some kind of AI that's smarter than a human. And
Mhm.
the widespread belief and almost religious belief for some people in Silicon Valley is that this is eventually going to happen. It's going to emerge from all the billions of dollars that they're spending on chips and data centers and drinking water and everything else, and that this is going to be untold benefits to humanity. I mean, we're talking like, well, we don't need to try to solve climate change because AGI is going to for us. I mean, Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, has said that. And
Once we suck all of the resources,
yes.
the AI is going to spit back a fucking answer we already knew.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable in a way. And that kind of reasoning justifies anything, any kind of resource expenditure. If you are making the ultimate thing, what actually some people call the last invention, which is a
Mm,
cool name, but if you think you're doing that, then anything is justified. You can take away a community's water, you can go into huge amounts of debt, you can keep, you can do this sort of destructive trade war with China. I mean, that's not even high on their list, but the 100 billion plus dollars that each company has to spend to even be in the AI race now, at least how they're doing it, is seen that it's all going to work out in the end,
yes.
or at least that's the promise. And I think that itself is kind of an authoritarian attitude. That means that they think they are entitled to as many resources as they need. The only other thing that I can think of that's comparable is actually Elon Musk, who of course is pouring huge amounts of money, a lot of it coming from Saudi Arabia and other authoritarian Middle Eastern dictatorships, but pouring huge amounts into XAI. At the same time, though, he used to say, and I think he would still say, that he needed to become a trillionaire so that he could send people to Mars. There's this, it's just another way of saying, I need as much money and resources as possible because I'm going to make something unbelievable for all of you. And the other thing that we hear them talk about, um, we've heard people from OpenAI, Sam Altman and others from OpenAI say this, or VCs say this. Again, all billionaires who are not known for sharing, but they
Mm,
claim that we're going to have infinite abundance, that we're going to go from a world of where there's shortages of things or just limited amounts of things because we live in reality, to one of incredible abundance. And so you won't even really need to tax billionaires because we're all going to have what we need. And that's another one that kind of sounds like an excuse or almost a permission structure. Like,
yes.
don't regulate us now. And in fact, they've tried to pass laws against any AI regulation. Let us keep doing this, as crazy as it seems, because one day the $1 trillion is gonna produce something that will change everything.
And we talked about, I know you and Paris Marx have spoken. I love when you guys talk, and Paris has been on this show. But like, the AI is an increasingly a huge percentage of the market right now.
Yeah, it's really striking. You have economists now who are releasing studies and graphs showing that the capex, or capital expenditure on AI, like this is billions of dollars each quarter for some of these big companies, is actually propping up the U.S. economy on sort of in a crude way because this is so much money. Of course, we're building data centers that are not really good for the environment, for local communities. There's going to be a huge sort of price tag on the end of this, or negative externalities when this bubble bursts. But right now, yeah, there is so much money being spent on this. And you can also say, like, imagine if we were spending tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars per year on renewable energy, on
Yep.
universal healthcare, on
Yep.
infrastructure. Like, it's almost obvious to say this stuff now.
Yep.
But
But it's not making people money. I mean, that's the whole thing.
right.
It wouldn't have that market share, and that's all that really matters. You mentioned briefly, and I know you've got a new piece out in the Nation that everyone should also check out, including pre-ordering the book. But about Saudi Arabia's role in all this. And I didn't know very much, but that, Saudi Arabia helped Musk with that overvalued purchase of Twitter to $44 billion. But what is that? What are the Saudi royalty connections to Musk, and specifically on X? And like, what is the manifestation of it? Like, what's happening because of that?
Sure. A few years ago, the Wall Street Journal wrote a big piece about Saudi involvement in the tech industry. We've had MBS come to the US and do all the handshake meetings with people. And at the time, they said that Saudi Arabia was the biggest investor in Silicon Valley startups. And I think they still are. Qatar and the UAE, they both have near $1 trillion sovereign wealth funds, and they're involved too. But I've written about this a fair amount because I think it's kind of overlooked, both for, as a power center in Silicon Valley, but also, where is a lot of the money coming from? Well, it's coming from a dictatorial state that actually a lot of the CEOs and executives in Silicon Valley identify with a lot, because they are authoritarians. So Musk has used Saudi Arabia as a source of money for a while now. I mean, they've invested in SpaceX. They were part of the Twitter takeover. They've invested in XAI and in most of his projects. And it's an entity that provides, regular cash for him. A lot of the investors in Musk's various businesses, well, some of them will do well or have done well, like especially in SpaceX, which is very highly valued privately, or some people who invest in Tesla. He also burns a lot of cash, especially with X and XAI. So my argument is partly that entities like Saudi Arabia, the country of Saudi Arabia, or the sovereign wealth fund of Qatar, they're partly in the Musk business because they want access to him, and because he's an important person, and he's an important person to either have access to him, to the data his companies produce, to their personnel. One thing I write about in the Nation, I've written about this in a few different formats, is there was a famous spy ring operating inside Twitter about 10 years ago, and the FBI figured it out. One person went to jail. This was Twitter employees spying for Saudi Arabia. And one person went to jail, went to prison, and one person fled to Saudi Arabia, where he got a great job working for MBS's private foundation. But I think, we don't have to be hawkish or militaristic when we talk about what are the roles of some of these not very democratic foreign governments, and what are they doing in Silicon Valley? And, there's espionage going on, which does matter to some extent, I think. They are stealing information and personal data. They are also funding some of the worst people in our politics, like Elon Musk. So that's really why I call attention to this stuff, and why I say,
also
like, we have
shaping
to
the
look at that.
narrative on the platform itself, right? I mean,
That's right.
and with the dawn of AI, it's like back in 2016, we were like, oh, these teens in Macedonia are getting, like $1 a click on random fake news articles that they're writing. And it's just like, I was just reflecting on this. Like, remember when we talked about 2016 misinformation? We are in leagues of hell worse
Yes.
than we were in 2016. And this is Elon, is someone who, when he bought Twitter, was like, oh, there's so many bots on here. There's so many bots on here. But like, Saudi Arabia and other authoritarians really do rely on their own bot machines to push their narratives on these platforms.
And as you indicate, that used to be individual people often working in sort of click farms, or even in offices in places like Saudi Arabia or El Salvador. It has been reported to have some propaganda operations on social media. A lot of these authoritarian countries, and a lot of that stuff, used to be one person, maybe with some specialized software handling a bunch of accounts. Increasingly, a lot of that stuff is automated with AI. I mean, AI is really supercharging the ability to produce disinformation at scale, the ability to operate a lot of accounts at scale, and the ability to shape narratives just by putting out slop or junk. And I think that's a huge concern. We know that Musk hasn't, specifically on X, hasn't done a good job with the bot problem, and seems to not care about who his investors are or what they stand for. Any sensible X user sees this stuff every day in one form or another. Yeah. So I think that's going to be a huge problem, especially as like so much just seems to be bots or AI or people we're not even sure is real, or them interacting with each other. that
Yeah,
it
yeah,
feels
and
like
as you
increasingly
mentioned,
that's just like the soup we're in.
right, just bots talking to each other,
Yeah,
and then, like, CNN saying there's violence on both sides or whatever the fuck.
yeah,
I mean, I do wanna talk about, like, where the money then goes because you have an entire chapter, Billionaires versus San Francisco. I used to live in San Francisco. I love it. So many of my friends and family are there. Um, and yet so much of this San Francisco scene is sort of like the ground zero for, um, not only I mean, first of all, I moved to San Francisco from South America, and they actually looked very similar to me, these 2 places, because why? Because San Francisco is one of the most unequal cities I think we have in this country. I mean, that you can even just see with your eyes, like the gap between rich and poor is very, very abundant. And yet, tech libertarians there really hate even having to see the byproduct of their own wealth hoarding in the form of homelessness, right? I hate having to even have their public schools be accessible to all people from different races and backgrounds and income levels. Talk about maybe the model of San Francisco politics and
mhm,
how a bunch of these libertarians have tried to take over local
mhm.
politics there and elsewhere.
So this is something I talk about in the book, was how San Francisco became sort of a test bed for some tech billionaires to affect local politics and really put their money to work. And then, having had some success there, they quite consciously and sometimes explicitly talked about how this is what they were going to do nationwide. So in 2022, when or some of the start even earlier at the beginning of COVID, but you had a lot of these social issues bubbling up. Also, a lot of people were upset at politicians in San Francisco because they took longer than some areas to reopen schools,
Mm,
and you
mhm.
started having a lot of discontent among you know parents in San Francisco, but also among tech millionaires and billionaires. And the there was initially a controversy over the San Francisco school board, where some people thought that the school board should be talking more about um, safety issues at school related to COVID or how to reopen schools. But there was especially one school board meeting where they were focused on renaming a bunch of schools. This is sort of a BLM era thing, that were perceived to be named after racist people. I mean, look, I would say a couple of these were borderline, maybe. I mean, I understand why there's a school named after Dianne Feinstein in San Francisco. That was one of the ones they wanted to rename. But anyway, it was the kind of thing that, especially in the place and time, was seen
Yes.
as like woke excess. This is not what we need to be focusing on. So, and perhaps there is an argument there, but the response was that, I believe for the first time in San Francisco history, there was a recall election of these school board members. And school board elections can be important, but they usually don't have a lot of money behind them. There aren't usually millions being poured in. And basically, led by the tech industry, somewhat an almost astroturf campaign, they recalled a few of these school board members. Another
Yep.
issue was you alluded to this, I think, was Lowell High School, which is widely considered one of the best schools in San Francisco, public school. They removed some of the academic requirements and testing requirements for admission to basically try to have a uh, wider student base and
Mhm.
more diverse one, and less drawing from a privileged
Mhm.
population. And a lot of people really didn't like that, especially in the meritocracy focused tech industry, where they thought, this is unfair to our children who we're sending to tutors and things like that. So you had first that, and then I'll go through the other ones a little faster. But then you had attempted recall of the governor of Gavin Newsom, and that involves some of the same tech people who had supported him, like David Sachs, who is a well-known Republican. He had supported Gavin Newsom with some donations. I think that was just a little bit out of convenience, like, oh, if he's going to be governor, I want to give him some money.
Of course.
But then a couple years later, he decides no, because we can actually remove this guy from office, and that one didn't work. But the one that did after that was they did this again, same group of people basically, mostly tech millionaires and billionaires with some real estate interests joining in. They managed to recall Chesa Boudin, who was the progressive district attorney, who became this symbol really of the Soros prosecutors, of the
Yes.
reformist prosecutors who supposedly care more about the rights of criminals than crime victims.
Yep.
And this was very powerful in San Francisco, especially when uh, especially when they talked about hate crimes against the Asian population, which people were worried about during COVID, of course, and which was a thing that was happening. But, what was happening in San Francisco was, while there were some violent crimes, even during COVID, it wasn't a very high crime rate. But what you had was, you had people like Elon Musk or David Sachs going on Twitter and posting viral videos of a property crime happening, or maybe someone getting attacked, and it would turn into viral hysteria every day.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
this is the kind of thing you saw happening a lot in San Francisco, and also with local bloggers who would just like make a living based off of hyping or decontextualizing clips of people doing drugs in the street or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also, the San Francisco is also sort of the ground zero for our tech surveillance culture, in large part based on the real and imagined, crime. I have so many thoughts on that, someone who lived there, and it's like, yeah, you can't leave anything in your fucking car because someone's going to bash it in. But do the cops know exactly who these people are? Yeah, they do. They fucking do. But they don't go after them because it's like, you get it when you don't ever catch the person who's helping you get a fatter paycheck, man. That ruins the whole narrative of crime. It's so sick and reciprocal and all that. And yet, you talk about in the book, this homelessness narrative that actually not just, a Peter Thiel accolade has invested in terms of, anti-homeless legislation in places like Florida and Republicans like Ron DeSantis, but also, has helped people like Gavin Newsom, inspire his little street sweep cleanup bullshit that we see, among Democrats as well. So before you have to go, I do want to talk to you about crypto, which is kind of like, your last book was on crypto. You covered the Sam Bankman-Fried trial. I mean, God, isn't it only a matter of time before he gets a pardon and he's working for Trump? As so many crypto like swindlers are right now. I guess I want to ask you about Democrats and cryptocurrency,
Sure.
right? There is this question of, you've got Senator Ruben Gallegos saying, look, I think he did an event with Andreessen, we got to swim in this soup. We got to contend in this space. We should be raising money from crypto as well. Give me your thoughts on that, and maybe if there's any sort of like how we get ourselves out of this situation. What kind of Democratic Party would it mean to get ourselves out of this Gilded Rage age that we live in? But first, maybe crypto.
Sure. Yeah, it seems to be something we and I will never escape. I feel like I keep on writing about it. For those who don't know, the cryptocurrency industry was the largest donor by industry in the 2024 election, nearly all for Republicans and Trump, and a few pro-crypto Democrats. They won every race pretty much that they put money into, except for one, I believe. So this was something like 45 elections. And during that summer, kind of belatedly, the Harris campaign tried to have a call with some crypto people and sort of do a reset kind of thing. And I think it was a mistake then and didn't really work. But I think it's a mistake now, that especially after the last election, that I've even told I don't hobnob a lot with Democrats, but I've met a few Democratic politicians, and what I've said was, this isn't a normal industry. This is one that is your adversary, your political adversary. They want different things than the Democratic Party, with a couple exceptions like the Ruben Gallego types or Kirsten Gillibrand. And the things that they want are bad for us, bad for constituents, bad for the party of consumer protection. Mm-hmm. And it's an industry that doesn't have a real product, at least a legal one, and is mostly based on Ponzi schemes and unsound economics and swindling people. And now it's based on political corruption, changing the law very directly in their favor, and the president himself being the leading crypto entrepreneur and doing a lot of illegal stuff in the process. I mean, unbelievable corruption. So I don't think that message has sunk in with Democrats. They need to listen to me and other people, but it's like, this is even different than every industry has some kind of like political and moral valence. They have different ways that they align themselves. But my argument is that, at least like oil or gas, like we need that stuff, or pharma, like there are industries that act badly. Yeah. And crypto, I would say you don't need. And if you turn them away, you might lose some corporate donations, but they are already fully in the tank for Republicans. And they don't want anything that the Democrats are going to put forward. They might put a little bit of money in their pocket to try to control them or get them to vote on the next Genius Act. But yes. I mean, why would you vote yes on the Genius Act when the president is involved in the stablecoin industry, which is what the Genius Act was supposed to regulate. That's just blessing his corruption. So, I get very frustrated and kind of mad because I think the Democrats largely still don't get this. There are a few that do, but this is much more of like kind of a subversive entity than someone that can be, even by our horrible standards, a political partner in some ways.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see in the 2026 cycle, Democrats try to be nice to crypto. I don't know why. I think they'll try to get some of that money. Again, I don't think it's worth it or even enough to move the needle in any way. And I also think that people who are diehard crypto people, they don't care what the Democrats do. Most of them are going to donate Republican anyway. It's not really a big enough cohort to really matter, I think, but they are a very loud one. So I just don't think the Democrats understand even still that, this is an industry that has worked against them in a very concerted way that you haven't really seen other industries do. And I think Sam Bankman-Fried was doing it in his own way. I write in my book, I think he laid the groundwork for this kind of corruption. I think a bunch of crypto industry officials basically reran his program, but more concertedly Republican aligned.
Right, and they got off. and
it worked. I mean, one of the things that Sam Bankman-Fried wanted to do was he wanted to have futures markets in the U.S. and derivatives markets more open to crypto, basically, so that people could gamble more on and borrow more money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, they just did that. And that's also why I wouldn't be surprised to see him pardoned, because I didn't think so last year, but now Trump started by pardoning so many fraudsters and financial criminals and crypto criminals, including people who admitted to fraud. So, maybe through Peter Thiel, who supposedly is friendly with Joseph Bankman, perhaps a pardon is coming one day. But, this is really bad, I think. And I think people don't still fully grasp how bad it is until maybe the New York Times blasts it across the front page.
Jacob Silverman, thank you so much for being here. The new book is Gilded Rage, Elon Musk and the Radicalization of Silicon Valley. How can people order it? Where are you? Local bookstores, your website?
Yeah, local bookstores are always great and much appreciated, or bookshop.org. It's still on all the big evil retailers. And I just finished recording the audiobook, so everything should be out either October 7th. I think the audiobook might be October 9th, but if people are into that. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. You're awesome. And thank you so much for breaking it down so succinctly. Take care. And thank you all for being here. Again, the open face sandwich of the Bituation Room this September 16th rolls on. Blakeley's going to be here in just a moment. I'm going to bitch about something to set the scene and stage. I did want to take a moment, however, to let you know a little not so dirty secret about me. I love meal kits. That's right. I have not been able... you can send me a recipe, whatever you like, please. But until that time, I rely on meal kits. And one of those is HelloFresh, our sponsor. Look, it is fall. You might want something heartier and yummier, but also you don't just want to eat like a big bowl of pasta every night. I mean, you do, but you don't. HelloFresh has a massive menu, 100 options each week, new seasonal dishes, recipes from around the world, bigger portions that keep everyone satisfied, also healthier options, making sure you eat your greens and veggies. There are all kinds of awesome seasonal things like snap peas, stone fruit, corn on the cob, all that stuff. And also steak and seafood at no extra cost. A lot of meal kits will charge you more. So thank you, HelloFresh, for supporting the Bituation Room. And go to HelloFresh.com/Bituation10FM to get 10 free meals and a free item for life. That obviously you have to be an active member, but that's 10 free meals. That's great. Best way to cook just got better. HelloFresh.com/Bituation10FM now to get 10 free meals plus a free item for life, one per box with active subscription. Free meals applied at a discount on the first box and new subscribers only. It also varies by plan, but HelloFresh.com/Bituation10FM to get 10 free meals and a free item for life. Also would like to thank the wonderful people at sunsetlakecbd.com, where your girl gets her focus gummies with lion's mane and reishi mushroom. Your girl gets her relax relax gummies. Also the sleep gummies, some with melatonin, some without. They're wonderful. Also, I have to say, I've been really digging Sunset Lake's new teas. They have like different teas, like 1 milligram, between 1 milligram and 5 milligrams of CBD, but also THC. And they're wonderful. And you get 20% off with the code FRANTIFA, FRANTIFA, when you go to sunsetlakecbd.com. Everything is third-party tested. It's regeneratively grown. They have awesome business practices. They donate to great causes. So don't sleep, or do sleep if you're me, sunsetlakecbd.com. And with that, guys, let's get into what we are bitching about. So I said this to Jacob, and I'll say it to you all, but I've been appalled. I think the word is appalled. I've tried to put my finger on the feeling I've been feeling for the last, 6 days, and it's appalled. We as a country are being collectively gaslit about the senseless and heinous murder of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk. Now, let's put aside his thoughts and his views and the kinds of speech that he practiced. I am incensed specifically about the motive behind this murder. Because before the suspect was even caught, before this 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, again, a Mormon, a white guy from a red district and a red state with Republicans all through his family, grandmother saying they don't even know a Democrat, before he was even apprehended and being charged now with aggravated murder and obstruction offenses. Before all that, Donald Trump came out, the regime came out and said the left is insane, the left is violent, the left. That's all we heard, and no one had been apprehended, almost like there was a narrative they wanted to push. And that narrative continues, no matter what this person's actual identity or actual rationale behind it. Again, what we know, and there is more that has just been revealed thanks to the reporting of Ken Klippenstein, but what we know is this person was a big gamer, that this person on the shell casings of the bullets that he had in his gun wrote things that were references to a game. I think it was, what is it? Helldivers? References to Helldivers. Also, if you're reading this, you're gay, LMAO, stuff that I don't know. You weigh in. Does that sound leftist to you? And yet, Governor Cox of Utah has been saying this everywhere he can. And despite being asked for specifics about why he thinks or knows that this person had leftist ideology, cannot come up with them.
Told the Wall Street Journal that it is, quote, very clear to us and to the investigators that this was a person who was deeply indoctrinated with leftist ideology. Can you elaborate on that and be more specific?
Well, sure. So that information comes from the people around him, from his family members and friends. That's how we got that information. Again, there's so much more that we're learning, and so much more that we will learn. There will be official charges will be filed on Tuesday, and there will be much more evidence and information available then. And again, we're interviewing all kinds of people, everyone that knows him, and trying to learn more about what that motive actually was.
Okay, but why do you say that he's got a leftist ideology? What's the evidence? What's the proof? And by the way, it is Tuesday. We've got the charges, and there is no more evidence. Oh, but wait, there was evidence. Ooh, there was definitely evidence, according to FBI director / children's book writer Kash Patel. There was totally evidence. This kid, Robinson, had a whole letter that he wrote. He totally wrote this letter, but you can't see it. You can't see it because it got destroyed or whatever. But I'll tell you what it said in it. And it said he didn't like Charlie Kirk. What? Oh, yeah, we know that. Listen to Kash Patel try to explain.
Did he write a written note before the assassination attempt? That's what the governor said yesterday. And what did that say, if you could share?
So what I'm able to say, I'm sorry. So what I'm able to say is, I addressed it partially earlier, is that the written note, we believe, did exist. And we have evidence to show what was in that note, which is, and I'm going to summarize, basically saying, the suspect wrote a note saying, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. That note was written before the shooting. Evidence of its existence, we now have learned, existed before the shooting, was in the location in the suspect and partner's home. But we have since learned that the note, even though it has been destroyed, we have found forensic evidence of the note, and we have confirmed what that note says because of our aggressive interview posture at the FBI.
Okay. So once again, we know there was a note. There's a lot of mumbling and bumbling about exactly, we know it was written before, but you can't see it's been destroyed. But because of our aggressive interview style, we know what it said. Now, again, the right is now saying that because they've been interviewing a roommate and possible partner or lover of Tyler Robinson, who is trans, that is grounds to say that this person had left-wing ideology, which is just the most insane, anti-trans, like bigoted and stupid thing to say, that if they were in a relationship, this person was left-wing. We know that's not true. But look, so again, there was a note. We don't know. I have the shot to take Charlie Kirk, but the note was destroyed. On and on and on with the lies, with the diversion, with the lack of specificity. But it turns out, according to Ken Klippenstein, who got messages that were sent to this Discord server from Charlie Kirk's assassin, this guy Tyler Robinson, he was a kid. He was a kid, a young man who used Discord a lot and confessed on Discord, hey guys, I have bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this. I'm surrendering through a sheriff friend in a few moments. Thanks for all the good times and laughs. You've been so amazing. Thank you all for everything. Ken continued, got messages from Discord, and the picture that he says emerged is not of someone who was a raging conservative and certainly no raging leftist, but someone who was just deeply online, sharing random memes, things about gamer culture, things about the weather. There was barely any references to either Trump or Joe Biden at the time. And I think this is what some people have been saying, which is this is not certainly not what the regime is saying, that it was a leftist, but possibly not even someone who I think some of us have been saying maybe he was a groyper. I mean, he dressed up as this Pepe meme frog, right, for Halloween, but actually someone who was perhaps incredibly, perhaps apolitical, and certainly a little bit nihilistic. And here was, I thought, a very good breakdown of maybe what Tyler Robinson's motive might have been, which was just no real motive, just kind of a disaffected young kid.
Many Pepe or groyper.
Hang on one second. Wait, one second.
This is so again, like many Pepe or groyper memes, the core of this is a lonely male figure in sort of an immiserated landscape looking sad. And that's part of the story I wish more people were talking about. What's driving our political violence isn't just polarization, where one side is getting more radical and kind of undermining democracy, nor is it algorithms, like some have said, that are like pickling the brains of young people. It is that feeling, which these Pepe memes represent, of you're always going to be alone, you're never going to have a future, and you're never going to have a voice. And that feeling, which is by no means rare or unusual in our society today, collides with a particular set of circumstances. This long entrenched nihilistic online tradition, the ready availability of firearms, and the increasing derangement of mainstream discourse, this ambient sense of like tension and volatility that exists in the air to produce stuff like this. And we're going to see more and more of it unless those root causes are addressed and unless we find a way to offer a better future to people.
Unless we find a way to offer a better future to people. And I know, like, I don't love, humanizing people who, tear down, like, who kill others. But I do think there is a pattern. There is a problem with young white men in this country. And they haven't seen God. It ain't that. It is a lot bigger, and we need actual leaders who are not scapegoating, who don't have their preconceived narratives, who aren't basically ordering a hit out. And we're going to talk with Blakeley about this in a second. It is actually having a little more understanding of like why this nihilism, and that combined with the access to guns. Again, Utah, some of the most lax gun laws in the country, produces things like these kinds of murders that might not even be politically motivated. Let me bring her in to weigh in. I've said a lot. She's a content creator. They are content creator and a songwriter living in Brooklyn. I'm sorry I didn't ask pronouns. It's Blakeley. Blakeley. Was that, are you laughing because it was an awkward intro? Wait, I can't hear you, Blakeley. Unmute.
No, I was laughing because I was like, that's great. She corrected my pronouns, so I didn't need to awkwardly correct and say it's actually they. You did it yourself. We're good.
We're good. And then she sing-songed her ass out of there. Good God, Blakeley. There's so much to bitch about. We're going to get into a little bit of the basically the reaction, the mass doxing campaign. We're going to talk about, our new defense budget bill. But what are you bitching about? It can be related. Please give me what you're bitching about today.
So I thought about this because I saw the topics we were going to cover. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to pick something that's going to be in the topics that we're already covering. So I'm picking a different kind of angle of it, which, by the way, thank you for having me on. Huge friend of the show. I'm friend of the show now.
Friend of the show.
So what I'm bitching about is the grotesque way that the evangelical Christian community is capitalizing on Charlie Kirk's assassination. I find it, I'm a Christian. I'm somebody who grew up in what I like to call a fair weather fundamentalist home, where by fair weather, I mean my dad would vacillate in between, I'm locking the fridge and you guys are getting fined if we don't go to church, and you can't watch that 70s show because it's demonic, to actually it's fine, we don't have to go to church, I want to watch King of the Hill. So it really just depended on what kind of week he was having. But I definitely went through phases where my parents went through very born again Christian fundamentalist phases. And so and I'm a Christian still today, non-denominational. I cannot stand evangelicals. I do not consider them real Christians. I consider them a hybrid political creation of America. They don't really exist the way that they do here around the world. Now, that's not to say there aren't crazy sects of Christianity around the world where they kind of capitalize on this thing. But American evangelical Christianity is a very unique thing to this country. And it expresses itself in a certain way where the identities of the Christian evangelical and the right-wing Republican apparatus has fused itself. Mm-hmm. So what I have found particularly disgusting, and I've talked about this with other people before, it's a little bit of a lonely place to be on the left and be a Christian, because I know that a lot of people can't really relate to me because all of my friends are devil worshippers. No, I'm kidding. They're all atheists. But it is something that to experience and watch is maddening. Yeah. I think that they are despicable in the way that they have used this. Seeing people say that this inspired them to go to church for the first time. Your hate inspired you to go to church for the first time. Not the love of Christ, not school shootings that happened to children that were Catholic, not the kids at Uvalde. It was this assassination of your avatar, your Christian avatar, of absolute vile, transphobic, homophobic, racist hate. Somebody who was whipping up violent hate against the trans community, against Arabs in Michigan by reposting that they were going to have Arabic on their uniforms, and to Black people trying to whip up white people into a frenzy right before his death. And so I find this, all of a sudden, you guys are feeling Christian and inspired to go on behalf of Jesus, to go to church so that you can worship this person who lived their life in such a constant state of vile hate and propaganda. Now, one last thing I'll say about this. I don't feel like I need to continually say, yes, it was wrong that he was killed. Yes, we condemn violence. Yes, he should be able to speak without fear. anybody, obviously that should scare all of us, because if we can't speak freely in this country without fear of getting shot, which, by the way, marginalized communities have that fear every single day. I'm glad some people are paying attention now that it was a white man, but a white Christian man. But obviously I condemn that violence. Obviously we don't want that to happen, but we don't want it to happen to everybody, not just powerful people, famous people, white cishet men. Okay. So the last thing I'll say about that is I'm so disgusted with the way that the Christian community is acting, because what I need everyone to understand, if you're in a Christian household, if you have Christian family and maybe you are leaning left and you want to share those videos of Charlie Kirk being heinous, I'm so sorry to break it to everybody, but your Christian family likes Charlie Kirk because of his racism, because of his white supremacy, not in spite of it. So that is what is pissing me off.
I love that. I mean, what's also insane is, like, you know, this kid was from a Mormon family. So it's like, are you going to war against the Mormons? Are we talking about how Mormonism is a bastardization? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? If this were like, you know, someone who is Muslim getting killed by someone who's Hindu, you think they would fucking care? They'd be like, I don't know, all the other weird religions, all the Browns, you know what I mean? They be like that. No, they would not care. And so, like, this is, and again, let us point out, Charlie Kirk didn't believe in empathy. I do believe in empathy, and I actually have some of it, but it is very, you know, it is waning because of the ways that that not even the left, random people are being criminalized and doxxed over this. But yes, it's a good thing to bitch about. The pseudo Christianity, and again, you know, we just talked with Jacob about these billionaires, and I talk about it a little bit in the Lord of the Rings. Like, you think Catholicism and Christianity is just one way, and it really isn't. You know what I mean? It really is not. I think most people who start like Jesus or whatever, it's not because of the hateful rhetoric that your movement spews. It's because of the loving words of Jesus Christ that he actually said. You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that bring people in. And so it's just this misunderstanding of also, who gets to worship, and who, whatever, like their version of their own Christianity. So let's get into it, though, because it's been insane, you know?
Yeah, it has.
The right is calling for speech to be censored in honor of the free speech warrior, Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk and his show, obviously, were left without a host. And so naturally, Blakeley, the vice president of the United States, stepped in to be the podcast host.
As you do.
As you do, as his death was announced by the White House and not a police department. Normal, super normal. And many people have been doxxed, in many cases falsely. Journalist Taylor Lorenz has a new piece out where she talks about people's images and names being used to then, like, top a Twitter, a tweet or some sort of post that they had absolutely nothing to do with, losing their jobs over what are fabricated things. Even the people who have been doxxed or have been put on lists, the things they're saying are like, we need more gun control, violence is terrible. I mean, they are not saying the dancing in the streets, right? Like, the celebrating is not happening. But here is JD Vance, and don't worry, he's being very vice presidential. He's taking the rhetoric down a notch.
There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagree. Did you know that the George Soros Open Society Foundation and the Ford Foundation, the groups who funded that disgusting article justifying Charlie's death, do you know they benefit from generous tax treatment? They are literally subsidized by you and me, the American taxpayer. And how do they reward us? By setting fire to the house built by the American family over 250 years. I am desperate for our country to be united in condemnation of the actions and the ideas that killed my friend. I want it so badly that I will tell you a difficult truth. We can only have it with people who acknowledge that political violence is unacceptable, and when we work to dismantle the institutions that promote violence and terrorism in our own country.
In other words, we can only have free speech when we get rid of free speech. He is talking about a Nation magazine article. He's talking about the Nation of all places, which does not get Soros money, doesn't get Open Society money. And he is mad, Blakeley, because the context apparently of Charlie Kirk talking about Black women not having the processing power, mental processing power, was taken out of context.
Yes. Take it out of context. So much so that all the people that were saying that we need to listen to his words, when people just shared compilations on Instagram and TikTok of his exact words, they took the videos down of just him talking. That was the context. I know you probably feel this way too, and I'm glad I'm not alone. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
Oh yeah.
The gaslighting, the hypocrisy, but the exhaustion and the fatigue of calling them out for their hypocrisy because they don't care.
Yep.
Like the weaponization, the victim complex, the pearl clutching while being on a witch hunt. Like it's too much.
It's too much. It's too much. It really does. It's the, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills from Zoolander. That's all it, that's my millennial ass reference. But let's be clear, okay? When I said, we all knew the narrative, the fix was in from before. Now they're going to bend over backwards to make it look like somehow he had a leftist ideology. But the same thing is true with the crackdown. Before all of this happened,
yes,
they were coming after foundations. They were coming after nonprofits. Specifically, they're coming after Act Blue, which is a platform that many progressive candidates and causes and NGOs use to raise money. They're coming after Act Blue. This will only add to that fire. And here's Stephen Miller, and I've got to play this while we're on screen because for a moment, you're like, wait a minute. Who is he talking about? Because right now there are lists that are being compiled. The website Charlie's Murderers has been taken down, but it's been rebranded, and there will be a searchable list, not unlike an issue you talk about a lot and I talk about, which are the lists of people who hate genocide, that are created by Canary Mission and whatnot. Here is Stephen Miller, who was JD Vance's first guest on his fill-in for the Charlie Kirk show. Like, oh my God, you guys are in fucking government. I need a podcast. You're literally in government.
It's amazing. It really is. No, and Cash Patel too. When he's not writing his book or doing his podcast, he's putting out the wrong names of people.
Yes.
As and telling us about how the dog ate the homework and the proof of supposedly this guy being some left-wing Antifa. Yeah. This is we live in clown world.
We live in clown world.
We really do. And it's really scary because it's so serious. Like, actually, Stephen Miller, the way that he answered these questions on that podcast of Charlie Kirk or of JD Vance actually kind of summed up the kind of world that we're living in. It's both scary and ridiculous to where you laugh at the same time. Like, It's deadly serious and scary. They are trying to take away our civil liberties and our rights. But at the very same time, he is such a goddamn clown. It's hard not to laugh because he's like an over-the-top, like, ridiculous, embarrassing talking vampire. So It's like also hard not to laugh because he reminds you of like a cartoon villain in a way, like the way that he speaks.
Yeah. He's so self-serious, like that you're like, you can come on, my guy. Let's play that right here. And here he is.
Stephen.
The organized doxing campaigns, the organized riots, the organized street violence, the organized campaigns of dehumanization, vilification, posting people's addresses, combining that with messaging that's designed to trigger and incite violence, and the actual organized cells that carry out and facilitate the violence. It is
okay. Who do you think he's talking about? The organized doxing campaigns, the organized street violence. Like, my mind, just like listening and reading and hearing about people, my mind is like, yeah, what you guys are doing right now.
Right.
I think it's important to know Turning Point USA has a professor's watch list, people. This is one of the main pillars of what they do, is putting professors they think are too woke. I mean, the entire project is anti-intellectual, against anyone going to college. Obviously now the semester that the shooter went to college is now being blamed. This is everything is a massive projection, which is why, Blakeley, to your point, we feel like we're insane, because we're in a fucking prism of their own creation. Like, they're the ones doing the doxing. They're the ones with the AstroTurf fucking militias. They're the ones who are actively recruiting former militias to be in ICE, who are terrorizing neighborhoods right now. Like, this is what they are doing. And so they're just like, they're throwing it all on us. They're throwing it all on us.
It's a vast domestic terror movement. And with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name.
First of all, I like how JD Vance looks like he needs a high chair there. Like, it's like, did you even say thank you?
God, like, they both, I love when two people with anti-Riz come together and they're just sort of these like opposing magnets. Like, one of them, yes, the scary Transylvanian vampire, and the other one's like, yeah, like, it's just so whiny and like, how dare you?
I actually really resent that about JD Vance too, because he has no talent and no Riz. He is just a propped up creation of the right-wing oligarchs. Like, with Trump, like, I can't stand Trump, but Trump can be funny. Trump does have charisma. So as horrible as he is, and he is, there's still things that you can be like, okay, that was kind of funny. Or yeah, he actually like had that is unique about him. I can't stand when people who are talentless, personality-less, eyeliner wearing, hedge fund goons pretending to be from the working class get up here with all that tude and that wannabe swagger when ain't nobody earned that. You did not earn that, bitch. You literally were created in a lab by Peter Thiel. But you get up here and you pretend like, listen, I'm just like a regular guy and I'm telling the left like it is. It's like, oh my gosh, shut up.
I mean, then this is what's so ironic about saying that the nation is being funded by George Soros. It's like, you, my friend, are, I mean, you are a creation of Peter Thiel. You were created in a fucking lab, my guy.
Literally.
And on top of that, so was Charlie Kirk created in a lab. He started like many right-wing influencers started, which is having some sort of grievance politics story where he didn't get into West Point and then blamed like a black person or a person of color, basically blamed more undeserving, more diverse people for getting in and basically stealing his spot. And then he got propped up by Fox, he got propped up by Breitbart, and then he was propped up literally by the Koch brothers network that funded Turning Point USA, and on it goes. It is completely AstroTurf, like so much of the right-wing movement is. And now, and I think this is the most chilling thing, it's like, now that what had been AstroTurfed could actually be and is a very scary white nationalist anti-government militia movement that I'm not saying this kid belonged to, but like exists out there. We all know they're afraid of their own creation. And instead of taking the heat or trying to take it down a notch or doing any kind of gun control, they're just sicking the mob after us. They're sicking the mob after Democrats, leftists, liberals, and accusing us of everything. And it's like, I don't fucking know what kind of like Winnie the Pooh ass, distract the bees, like situation. This is, you know what we're doing here, but it's very scary because it shows me, oh, you are as afraid of these people, as honestly that I am.
Yes. And that's why they deny it and they project, and it's maddening because everything that they are accusing the left of doing is what they're doing right now as we speak, doxing people. I've known at least 10 people personally who have gotten fired already from their jobs, who have been doxxed, who have had their information, but like, it is insane. And again, it's maddening because they're not only doing what they accuse the left of doing, they not only are proving once again how full of shit they are about free speech and censorship and the First Amendment, trying to dox people and get them deplatformed and fired from their jobs, but also on top of that, they're trying to, and they are working on right now using the full force of the federal government to go after people like we're in 2003 again, using terrorism as the reason. It is so crazy. It is so insane. It is so scary because not only are they lying, but the reality is the reason why we're scared is because we know that they are violent, that they are not afraid to use it, which is why, again, it's just a white supremacist dog whistle when people like Riley Gaines, speaking of you mentioning how all these people are astroturfed, how her career got started was just being transphobic and coming in 5th place. But like now all of a sudden she's a Fox News star and like comes out and they keep posting this very coordinated message where they say, Black people burnt down cities, white people go to church, we are not the same.
Yep.
As they're purposefully whipping up hate against people on the left, even regular libs, even people that aren't even really on the left, they're doing that. And then they're also using the weight of the federal government to try to crack down their political opponents. The only silver lining that I am looking at in this, if the country doesn't completely collapse and the tech oligarchs take over and turn us all into network states, is if they do this, it will 100% come back to bite them in the ass. Because if they want to institute actual laws and censorship, there's no way that doesn't eventually get weaponized back against them. Like, they think the 2020 woke era was bad. It can get a lot worse for them if people actually decide. And by the way, they're creating a lot of rage on the left. You think you're going to get all these people fired and you're not going to create rage on the left?
Well, yes. And they're like, if only we had actual leaders who knew how to capitalize on a fucking moment or talk about, like, you know, yes, the broad relinquishing of our civil liberties based on lies. But you're absolutely right that it will come for them as well. And what's so ironic about it is like, oh no, we hate cancel culture unless it's coming from the government that we like. Then
big
we're totally cool
big government.
As long as it's big government doing the cancellation, yes, baby, we're winning. Like, what was like the Me Too movement and like the 2020? It was us fucking online being like, hey, maybe don't prey on people. It was like people getting, you know, after decades of sexual harassment, finally facing losing their jobs for half a second before they fucking got a new one. Like, it's so amazing. Like, we did not have the weight of the government behind us. Maybe a corporation decided to have a Black Stories moment during 2020, you know.
Well, that was actually the other thing I want to mention about what you're saying about them is that I think that on the left, we really need to not allow them to retcon what happened. Were there a few instances of like woke over the top action that people got swept up in? I would say yes. There were a few things that I was like, okay, everybody just calm down. But for the most part, it was literally just like hollow, let's put a Black Lives Matter banner on the Amazon thing. And like they have rewritten history to where they keep saying the left burnt all the cities down. That didn't happen. That literally didn't happen. Like
Gina Carano has to be reinstated with her own Marvel spin-off show, and she can share as many anti-Semitic memes as possible.
No, it's actually insane. And by the way, they were already doing this crackdown before this happened, as you mentioned, rightfully so. They've already been doing this government crackdown on pro-Palestine protesters and the colleges and people for speaking out against Israel. This is just an accelerant. They're basically using his death as an accelerant to carry out this authoritarian fascism that they have already been wanting to do. And as you point out about them doing something as they're doing it, like Stephen Miller did, they're literally going, your words incited violence against Charlie Kirk because you guys called him a Nazi and a fascist. You fascist, you authoritarian leftist. So they're literally calling the left all the names that they're also hysterically crying and saying got Charlie Kirk. It put Charlie Kirk in danger.
I just don't feel like it's the one. No, I totally feel like it's the one argument that I disagree like with some people who are like, you know, pointing out how the right also says fascist, or like the right, JD Vance called Trump Hitler at one point. To me, they are very unequal to like be an authoritarian or have fascistic thinkings and tendencies, believe that certain races are superior to others, or that Brian Kilmeade openly saying homeless people should be murdered. That's very different than calling that what it is.
Right.
It sounds like eugenics. It sounds like what the Nazis did. Me saying that is not the fucking same. It's the reverse
right,
racism
yeah.
like argument. So it's like,
Right.
yeah, these are apples and oranges.
Mad
But
false equivalencies. But I do just think it's funny. I agree with you. I just think it's funny that as their crocodile tears and their hysterics about how the left is endangering with their words and words are violence now, they're also calling the left all of those things as they're trying to criminalize our speech.
all we need to know is which side wants gun control. That's, I mean, literally, you can end any argument about this with which side wants gun control. I mean, it's not even a side. 70%, no, more than 70% of Americans believe in universal background checks. Utah didn't have it.
Yeah,
I'm
how
not
many
saying
people
that
know that they had open carry on their
on the campus. I mean, I'm not saying any of these things would have necessarily prevented, Charlie Kirk from being murdered, but like it's at least a fucking start.
Right.
And only one side actually wants to do that kind of stuff. But you mentioned Israel and the crackdown, and it really is, this is turbocharging a chilling of speech. But we have to talk about this week, the House passed a massive defense spending bill that now goes to the Senate, and it really is an insane goodie bag for Israel. And just today, the United Nations Human Rights Council report came out and said, yeah, it is a genocide. Nearly shy of 2 years on, it is a genocide. And oh yeah, the vast undercount that Gazan doctors have done. Excuse me, the I can't even remember. Basically, the vast undercount of dead is correct. 64,000 people have been murdered, which is again a massive undercount. And every day it goes on and it gets worse. But I just want to get through some of the things that are here in this bill. $500 million for U.S.-Israel missile defense. So Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow, all the other things. $35 million for emerging tech, AI, directed energy, and cybersecurity. $80 million to expand the joint U.S.-Israel anti-tunneling program. A new Defense Innovation Unit office in Israel, plus Defense Industrial Base Working Group to integrate U.S. and Israeli arms industries, extending the war reserve stockpile, allies keeping U.S. weapons pre-positioned for Israeli use. Remember, Israel already has this massive stockpile of weapons, of U.S. weapons. It doesn't even need to tap into new money that we give them. Also, all kinds of protections for them. So Lauren Boebert introduced an amendment into this Pentagon spending bill that basically protects Israel from, says that any contractor that engages in boycott, divestment, or sanctions could not get a DoD contract. Now, I know that it sounds a little like this is the DoD, these are weapons contractors. I'm sure they're all on board with killing because they care about the bottom line. But let's say, there is some sort of some contracting company that's working on food or medical assistance or something that says, we have strict guidelines about not, selling or working with a company or in a country that might be committing war crimes. They would not be able to get a contract. That would be considered BDS according to this, this new amendment. It didn't pass, but nearly passed an anti-BDS stipulation for any country. Basically, the DoD cannot work with any country that boycotts Israel under any circumstance. That didn't pass, but it was proposed by Josh Gottheimer, who is a Democrat.
Of course. Of course it was.
Because of course it was. So that is insane. So again, there's no ban on not working with the EU or UN because they have acknowledged, the UN just acknowledges the genocide, but they're going to probably keep trying to push that forward. And then let's see, I want to just go into more specifically, again, banning contractors boycotting Israel from tapping most federal contract dollars since more than half of the $755 billion the U.S. government spent on contracts last year flowed through the Defense Department. There was no discussion, by the way. It was just automatically approved. Interestingly, her counterpart, I was like, did Marjorie Greene vote for this? She did not, nor did Thomas Massie, nor any of these, obviously many, many, many Democrats voted against it. But so all to say that the the anti-BDS, the chilling of free speech, is now in the DOD. We know Pete Hegseth is saying he's firing, anybody who, I guess this is related, but heralds the death of Charlie Kirk. It's like, who's doing that? And then separately, there is a rider, a labor HHS education rider, that conditions all federal funds on universities and makes them adopt the anti-Semitism code,
Oh my gosh.
which includes criticizing Israel, and punishes students, staff, or groups accused of anti-Semitism while using campus facilities. But here's the real, so that's all going forward. That's like moving to the Senate. We will see what fucking happens. But separate to that, there is another bill that is being pushed by Representative Brian Mast that allows the Secretary of State to rescind passports. So we're here, people. It took us 9 months, but we did it. We got it.
This is insane, bro. This is insane.
This is allowing the Secretary of State to rescind the passports of or deny or rescind passports to people whom they determine have knowingly aided, assisted, abetted, or otherwise provided material support to an organization the Secretary has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. So UNRWA could be that organization, right? These are the same auspices under which Mahmoud Khalil and I'm forgetting his name. Muhammad, what was his? Basically, people who've volunteered, or if you've donated to UNRWA, which is helping Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza, you could have your fucking passport rescinded. This is the same reason that people have been detained. Basically, anyone who speaks out in a way that Lil Marco doesn't like. And he's been doing that, like I just mentioned, under the Alien Enemies Act already. But Blakeley, you and I'm assuming a passport holder,
yeah, that could include me. That could include me for sure. This is insane. Not really that surprising though, because a lot of us said at the time that they went after Mahmoud Khalil, that you said that people were like, oh well, free speech and criticism, that doesn't mean anything if it only applies to Americans. And a lot of us said at the time, for now, you allow them to do it. You don't think they're going to move on to Americans next? This is so absurd. It's so insane. First of all, not to be dramatic, but I feel like people like Brian Mast should be expelled from Congress. I'm so sorry. You're a traitor. You're fixing to wear fucking foreign uniforms on the House floor. Get out. Go back to fucking Israel. Not that I would want to put the Palestinians through having to deal with more of that, but you're insane. This is crazy. Okay. This is crazy. You should not be able, the fact that this was even allowed. Same with Lauren Bobo. Okay. Another thing. Fraud patriots. I'm so tired of these fraud patriots. Today's 1776. I'm such a patriot. Meanwhile, she's like, how can I protect Israel? How can I protect Israel? You're going to get fired if you boycott. It is so insane. I'm so tired of these people. But this also goes back to what you were saying earlier. That makes me crazy. We have no leaders. There are no leaders in the Democratic Party to push this out. And this actually goes also to my criticism and why I was so pissed off when that whole chorus thing happened. That chorus thing scandal happened. I felt like a lot of people were missing the point of why, to me, it was so problematic. And it's because we don't have any leaders. What have I seen all the people in that chorus cohort come out and do? Capitulate to the right wing. And oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Where are you? Where are the leaders of the Democratic Party? Where are all the influencers in the Democratic Party? Where the fuck is Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer? These people are useless. And the reason why I know that the right wing are fascists and they are trying to erode our civil liberties as we speak, and they have been for years. But I will never allow the Democratic Party or the progressive movement or whatever you want to call it, left influencers, liberals, I'm never going to let these people off the hook, because the only reason why they are able to get away with moving us so fast to this fascist state, this police state, this state of having our rights taken away and getting censored and arresting people and ICE crackdowns is because we don't have an opposition party. We don't really have a real opposition party with real leaders. No, they're too busy throwing Zohran Mamdani under the bus and not endorsing him.
I mean,
mean,
it's the Kamala Harris campaign all over again, right? It's the
Facts.
Kamala campaign that, yes, we, and I know where you stood as well. We objectively know is far better than what the fucking hell we're living under right now. But it also was kind of based on nothing. There was nothing there. There was no real message. There was no real policy. There was no real speaking to average people who, yes, cared about Gaza. There, in fact, was a concerted effort to block anyone who called in about it, texted back about it, said, I really want you to change course on this genocidal policy, and it's terrifying me. And so, again, the groundwork, I mean, when I say, like, if you've donated to UNRWA, or, if you've donated to Palestinian causes, or families who are trying to make their lives out of rubble right now, if you've donated on Chuffed, right? Like, all of these places could be fair game to target. It's because in the early days, you had the New York Times running with the Zionist propaganda line about how UNRWA workers were working for Hamas. You had uncritical reports, the screams without words about the mass rape that happened on October 7th that did not happen. Like, these are the things that erode the trust, and it happens with centrists, it happens with the media, and you're right, it happens when we don't ask hard questions of our elected officials and why they're not fighting. Why is it? And it is very fitting, because all you need to know, Josh Gottheimer's out here trying to get people, trying to make sure that we don't comply with international law. And this is the same dude that wanted to make sure, and did, that Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan was fucking tanked, which goes back to the same point. The progressives and actual leftists, actual progressives, the squad, even though I have my critiques of them, were actually the ones who were trying to get the Biden agenda passed. As awful as his last year was because of how crazed of a Zionist he is, it was the Gottheimers, it was the centrists, it was the AIPAC money takers who were undermining his agenda. I like that you meet me on the same level of outrage about this kind of stuff. Rare do I have a guest.
It makes me so mad, because it really, it's never going to change until something changes. And that goes for the voters too. Because I see well-meaning voters that have been basically conditioned by the Democratic Party to do free PR for them. Yeah. And until that changes, I don't know if you saw the Jubilee with Jank, where he was talking to the establishment people or whatever. I saw parts of that, and what really, really, really hit me about how upsetting it was that everyone he talked to who was a liberal was defending the Democratic Party for being ineffective. And we're like, oh, but they tried. What about Joe Manchin? And I'm like, okay, we're never, ever going to be able to move forward and fight the Republicans if every time somebody on the left or a progressive speaks out, you're there to handcuff them and go, yeah, but guys, they tried. Leave them alone. Like,
I don't defend Jank's performance on Jubilee. I think that was really, but I do agree with you that yes, there are way too many people who did not learn the lesson. Look, the Democrats had a majority in the Senate, but it was their own who ate themselves. It was the Kyrsten Sinemas. It was the Manchins. It was Joe Biden himself not willing to put that pressure on. And that is really what has paved this path. I mean, how hard did you think? All you have to know about Kamala and Biden and the Democrats is look at how hard they're fighting now to help us against this pogrom, this insane fucking whistleblow for violence against anyone left of center. Look at how much they're helping us.
Not at all.
That's how much they cared about saving democracy. That's how much, and it's always somehow going to be our faults, right? It's and it's just it's beyond me.
So concerned that Kamala Harris only took a break out of her book tour to talk about Charlie Kirk. Hasn't said shit about anything else. Hasn't said shit about the assaults on Palestine, the ICE assaults, the assaults on our free speech, the crackdowns on the universities. Nothing. She only took a break so that she could condemn what had happened with Charlie Kirk, which, again, my problem with that is not people condemning what happened to him. My problem is your silence on everything else tells me exactly who the fuck you are.
Yeah, man, they're absent.
The only thing we're talking about.
Where are they? Like, literally, where are they? I mean, you're insulated is where you are. You don't care about the voters. Neither side cares about the voters. And going back to where we started, and we should wrap, but is just, I actually do like to have empathy, but I don't like, and especially the way that which most shooters are white dudes, white cis het dudes. It's like how to, to have so much empathy for them, but also yeah, man, people are fucking lost, and our society is hella militarized, and these stories connect, and we've been connecting them all week long, in terms of the violence that we reap and that we perpetuate abroad and that we support abroad, coming home to roost. These weapons of war, and the weapons in our police departments, and on and on and on and on. There's a through line. Yeah. There's a through line to the desperation and the aimlessness. I mean, and again, TBD on exactly what motivated this guy. We will find out, but it doesn't matter, because the die has already been cast against anyone who would stand up to the kinds of honestly hateful ideology that Charlie Kirk existed to perpetuate.
Yeah, and the other one thing I'll say is what I'm worried about is that because we have no leadership on the Democratic side, this pathetic non-response is going to continue, and we're not going to hear anything from them until the midterms, and then they're going to say vote for us or else. At a certain point, the abusive relationship that is happening between the Democratic Party leadership and their voters needs to be interrupted, because the Republicans are responsive to their voters. Somebody will put something on Twitter or TikTok, and the Republicans will draft a bill for it the next day. Yes. But you can't even get your Democratic lawmakers to be responsive to you. And this is a bigger issue, regardless, as you said, of what comes out about this guy, because I think Taylor Lorenz had probably one of the best responses to this, I thought. And that was her video that she did talking about political violence and how this is something that has been happening in our country and from our country for 2 decades or more now. Mm-hmm. And that it is only when it happens, the violence happens to an elite, that all of a sudden the country notices. Yep. But this kind of violence is happening, and is it all over the country, and has been happening all over the country. And a lot of that is nihilism. A lot of that is people feeling like the income inequality in this country is out of control, and people don't feel like they have anything to live for.
There's no future. There's no hope. I mean, and the nihilism runs deep. I mean, I think we started this show talking about tech billionaires. They're very nihilistic about things like climate change. Their whole thing is it's too late, got to get mine, and everyone else can be burned, turned into fuel. I mean, that's literally what a lot of them believe. And you're you understand, we are fighting forces that deeply don't believe, not just in morality or family or Christianity or all the things they purport to believe in. They don't believe in the future. They fucking think they're the future. They think they don't believe in the future. They have no interest in the future, no interest in future generations, no interest in the planet or anything, right? Yeah. These are deeply cynical people.
Yes, who all think they're going to live forever. They're all delusional and think they're going to live forever. Like the guy you argued with one time on Pierce, but do you condemn Hamas, Morgan? Where that guy was thinking he's going to live. It was so insane that I was I couldn't believe it. But that last point to what you were saying, I think is what is so scary and dangerous, and the lefties start paying attention to. I see a lot of leftists, and I say this with love. Really, I feel like not living in the year we're living in. They talk a lot about dismantling the United States and ending colonialism and reading Marx. And I'm okay, I get what you're saying. It's also 2025, and we have a bunch of billionaires that want to disintegrate the United States and turn us into network states and use us as fuel and food. And they don't care about what happens to the country. I feel like the left is stuck in this paradigm where they think they're just fighting the colonial United States and the right wing. There's no acknowledgement, I feel like, on the left of what we're actually fighting with the tech feudalists.
Totally.
What?
Yeah. No, it's
really worrying.
And I think it's actually kind of to the, to maybe the shooter's sort of aimless ideology. It rises above party. It really is the nihilism, again, like I'm saying, from the top and from the bottom, and of a random person or of a tech billionaire. And it really is, I mean, in their world, it's like, it's just like they're going to get theirs first. Like we're all expendable. We are all expendable. And the more we fight one another, the better. And I think this is the hope of someone like Zoran. This was the hope of someone like Bernie, despite his, all the falterings and failings. And the Democrats cannot even embrace. I mean, finally, Kathy Hochul gets on board this week with Zoran, but like you still have Hakeem Jeffries and you still have Gillibrand and fucking Schumer. And you're just like, okay, so you're like, it's just like, this was the hottest track of the year in music terms. You're not even going to play it. You're not even going to listen. Like, this is the biggest thing you had. You had this one thing and you're not even going to embrace it. It's insane. And with that, Blakeley, we could talk forever, but I'm so appreciative of you and your voice and your passion and your principles. And where can people find you, watch you, listen to you?
Well, thank you. And thank you again for having me. I'm on like most platforms at I am Blakeley. So the same that I have like in this name. I have a new, or not really new now, but like alternate YouTube channel that I'm using that people can subscribe to. It's at I am Blakeley, while I continue to fight for my first YouTube channel because I'm still not giving up on that. But I'm using a new one in the meantime. And yeah, on TikTok, on Twitch, all of them, it's at I am Blakeley.
Because there's basically been no recourse after you were yourself censored over
Palestine.
Over Palestine.
Yeah. And I'm still not letting that. People need to understand that I am a bitch that is not letting things go. When eventually, if the Democrats actually get their shit together, and I'm not voting for anybody who doesn't get the House back, no, bitch, I want hearings. I'm sick of the Republicans being the ones that are always driving shit and the left never does. No, I want hearings. I want hearings into big tech. I want hearings into YouTube. Where's Matt Taibbi in the Twitter files of the suppression of pro-Palestine people? Like, I want investigations into that because I am so tired of the left being attacked and no one standing up for us.
Yes, agreed. Or just moving on because for decorum's sake.
Right.
This is what happens. Our whole country isn't just a history of like racism and colonialism and, enslavement and, all this. It is the history of not actually dealing with that history. It's the history of soft pedaling and soft walking Confederates and racists and genociders and all this to the point where we're here.
And that is also on the Democrats because if Merrick Garland would have fucking indicted him like he should have after January 6th, we might have a different president.
Oh yeah, breaking news: the elections corruption case against Donald Trump in Georgia, that's basically done.
Of course.
Remember, all I need is 11,000 votes or whatever. Yeah, it's done. It's done.
It's like you said, it's a history of just them saying, let's move on. Let's move on. Civility and cordial, whatever.
Let's not prosecute, the Bush administration for their war crimes because that would divide the nation too much.
We're looking forward.
We're looking forward. My God, I feel enraged, but better, like a little, like degrees better than I did when we started. Thank you so much, Blakeley. Take very good care. Everybody follow Blakeley at I am Blakeley, Blakeley.
Yes.
Take care. And thank you all for being here. Let's read some comments and then, go cry into our pillows. Chris Brisson says, I'm watching from my computer room. Wow. That's kind of a flex. I mean, this is technically my computer room if you think about it. It's my streaming room. Wakanessa says, thanks for hosting Blakeley. I love their passion and advocacy on the channel. You're awesome too. It's also Fat Bear Week. What? It's Fat Bear Week. Oh my God. Okay. Stay calm. Really? Oh, dude. I didn't vote yet, though. I always miss the vote. I'm very excited for Fat Bear Week. I used to cover it every single year, but now I stopped streaming as much, but we'll see. Maybe we'll do a whole deep dive into how Fat Bear Week is actually bad and you really shouldn't fat shame the Grizzlies. Ugh. I'm going to ruin Fat Bear Week for everybody. Yes, they did drop the terrorism charges against Luigi, which is massive. And you wonder when tonight's monologues are already being written right now, and it's just going to be nothing but like, how dare they drop the charges? I'm sure, we'll find out what the prosecutors' gender and race are, and then we'll well, they'll freak out about that, but that is a huge win. Yes, please explain how this bunch got hooked up with Curtis Yarvin. Curtis Yarvin was just a good blogger. Good, I mean, in quotes. He's just a blogger. And they all started following him. And they were like, hey, he's got some pretty good ideas. They sound a little, Third Reich-y. Rachel Atwood says, yes, Elizabeth Warren destroyed her crypto bro opponent. Thanks for that super chat. Robert says, every rich man on Trump's donor list is in the Epstein files. Which tech bros are the Trump donors? Well, one of them was, I don't know if he was a tech bro, but these are all like Mar-a-Lago gadflies. They're kind of like installations there. One of them was the ambassador to the US from the UK, and they got let go. So there's that. But it's very funny that all of this is serving as a great distraction. Although Kash Patel was on the Hill today and was asked directly about the Epstein files and said that his most recent words, guys, was that Epstein didn't traffic women for other people. So there was no like clients. There weren't other people. And this must be music to Prince Andrew's ears. Perry Stein says, asks who gains from Kirk's murder. Only party is Israel. I'm saying they did it for sure. No, I'm saying they must be investigated. Look, I think that the Israel did this is a little bit of a bridge too far. And it feels like something the right, the anti-Semitic right is engaging in. And I don't think we should go down that path, right? I don't think they had anything to gain. There's no point. Like the whole, like, did they disagree about Israel? It just kind of feeds into an unnecessary, like, anti-Semitic, trope against Israel when we should all just hate Israel because they're genociders, not because they're Jews. You know what I'm saying? So I would caution us against that. And I don't think we'll see what, Tyler Robinson has to say or what happens in this investigation. I mean, what's really interesting about Tyler Robinson, the last thing I'll say is he's alive, right? He's alive in part because he's a white guy. Usually Dylan Roof was given Burger King after he massacred black churchgoers. So we don't treat white suspects always the same way as we treat black or brown suspects. But he's alive and he could actually speak for himself. I'm sure the regime would prefer that he wasn't, so they could be more heavy-handed about this narrative, but he is. And also, as Perry said, 2 black men lynched in Mississippi yesterday. No one's talking about it. I have not heard that story, but that's insane. Hippie Ninja, it's like they're gearing up for a massive crackdown. Indeed, you guys, stay safe out there. I mean, I'm feeling scary as well. And Political X, thank you so much for your chat. Says it's full-blown gaslighting. Indeed, Gary Cooper. Vance always sounds like a child pretending to be an adult. Oh my God, yes. Stephen Miller, although is quite simply Satan's representative on Earth. He's Himmler to Trump's Hitler. Magus says, I just got an ad for FBI recruitment. What is on this stream? Oh God. Ugh. I mean, one day we're all these platforms already work against us, you guys. So I don't know. All I can say is patreon.com/bituationroom. At one point we'll probably move there to fully stream there. Political X, great chat. What do you think is the way forward for real change? Also, Trump landed in the UK today. Mandelson gets sacked. Trump gets a state visit. Yes, Mandelson was who I was mentioning. Thanks for bringing them up. And everybody, I will share our interview with Political X. Our friends across the pond had a great interview with them on Friday. I think we need more figures like Zoran. We need more people saying, stop looking left and right. Look up. Look up. It's not us versus them. It is the 1% versus the 99%. And it will remain such. And anyone who can say that has it's the kryptonite to the right-wing movement, to the Democrats' fecklessness, and everybody knows it, right? It is the kryptonite. It continues to be the kryptonite, as well as building real community and taking care of one another. So take care of yourselves. And until next time, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine. Don't just bitch about it. Be about it, you guys. Love ya. Bye.